Hello, my name is Will. I'm your host. Welcome to this episode. This is the Dune episode. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Dune is a science fiction space opera novel by American author Frank Herbert, with two attempts. Well, there's been many attempts, but two actually made it to screen. We don't talk about the first film. Although that's very pretty, the new film is coming out and the trailer looks spectacular from what I've seen of it. I tend to avoid film trailers like the plague. I see a lot of people dismissing this book as overrated, this and that and so on, but without Dune, no science fiction would exist. Things like Star Trek, Star Wars, even novels. Dune is a backbone to science fiction that Lord of the Rings is a backbone to fantasy. The Dune saga is a massive series and a phenomenal series. So let's talk about Dune, let's talk about its influences, and yes, this is going to be spoiler free. Dune is set on an isolated desert planet. It is the story of a boy, Paul Atreides, heir to a noble family tasked with ruling an inhospitable world, where only thing of value is the spice melange, a drug capable of extending life and enhancing consciousness. That's all I'm going to tell you here, because you need to go out and read this for yourself. This is a massive story, and I mean, it's huge. It is scoping. It is beautiful. It is the complete and utter setting for most science fiction. The book deals with the politics and inhabitants of this planet. It deals with the world around it, the internal politics, the people, everything that is going kind of crazy as we speak. Dune paints this beautiful, beautiful thing. And it also basically created the concept of modern science fiction up until things like Neuromancer and The Matrix. Dune took a space opera and made it into a massive, brilliant and epic thing. Dune is often said to relate to science fiction the same way that Tolkien relates to fantasy. This is kind of true, not necessarily, because when it comes to science fiction, it's a far bigger thing. The first science fiction novel was actually Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Dune in itself is one of the most original and unusual pieces of sci-fi ever written, and it's kind of an interesting one where you end up just stuck and pulled in. The world around it and the functions of the world is predominantly inspired by the ancient Arab world, Islamic culture, and so on. It is one of the most important lit pieces of literature, and it's structured so. I think if you're a science fiction fan and you've poo-pooed Dune as being old and this and that, but at the end of the day, you should at least try it. This is a phenomenal book, so let's start with the important stuff. This is a masterpiece of world building. You get planets. You often get that his desert planet is based on real cultures, and that's perfect, because it reflects it. You get countless races, their cultures, the worms, and so on. They're all explored in this amazingly vivid detail, without being dull or just repetitive and repeating itself. While reading, you can get reference, you get pulled in, because the world building is just perfect. You can definitely see how many books and films are influenced by this. There is countless list of them. You also get this very interesting notion of a complete empire that is completely different, where mankind has stopped using technology and they're using their brains. And they're almost like an enhanced human. There's like two schools of those, and they're explored into this. The characters, the world building is just brilliant, and I love that about it. This follows a very simple, air quotes, chosen one pattern. He is the chosen one, Paul of Atreides. He gets many names, he's betrayed, he finds shelter, he seeks revenge. his character is beautiful and well built, and you feel like he feels like a real character. He is someone out for it. He is someone that is layered and interesting. But luckily, the upside to that is that every character is layered and interesting. You never feel like the characters are tacked on, or they're just there for info dumps or exposition and so on. These characters are just thought out. You could literally write a novel about every single one of them with no problems. And that's what I like about it. Is he a perfect character? No. He is faced with moral decisions. He is far from the Mary Sue. So this book has got accused of being slow. It's in a third-person narrative, which is fine. And it sometimes gives you a definite peek into different characters' plots. The book is slow, yes. It is a slower book. It's not going to be the fastest book you ever read. And that's kind of the point. It's big, it's epic, there is a lot going on. If it was a fast book, it would end up just become very boring. And I think without it, if it was a faster book, it wouldn't work. You need that slow pace, you need that writing that trickles you in, you need those conversations and description. It's a phenomenal work, and the writing is to the point. And yeah, I think when it comes down to it, you want that slow burn, you want that trickle. And lastly, I want to give some kudos to the villain before I talk about the actual book in review. The villain is a absolute bastard. He is fat, he is ugly, he's a pedophile, a slave worker. He treats everyone brutally, including his own family. He has no redeeming qualities, and he is cartoonish. But I like that. I can't imagine him being anything other. You need that big, cartoonish villain. You can't have someone who is sweet and sugary. It just wouldn't work. So let's talk about the book in review. What is Dune? Is it a space opera? Could it be political commentary? Is it philosophical exploration? Is it fantasy? It's possibly everything and more. It's huge. In review, why it does have its issues, it is fundamentally a point in science fiction that is extremely important. Dune exists for many reasons, and Dune is a fundamental backbone of so much science fiction. Love it or hate it, you cannot deny its importance. And when I see people saying their opinion as if they are the word of God, it kind of becomes like, well, I get it, you don't like it, but don't tell other people they shouldn't read it, or at least try it. I'm sorry, but that's not your job. Dune is a fundamental backbone, and without Dune we wouldn't have modern science fiction. Dune is one of those fundamental pieces of a puzzle. He is the first piece you lay that brings everything together. Yes, science fiction existed before, but science fiction evolved with Dune. Dune took science fiction from the world of pulp into the world of what it's become. I mean, without Dune you wouldn't have Star Wars. I mean, you might want to Google that legal case. Dune remains something important, and it always will be. Dune is a must-read book for any science fiction fan. Even if you don't like it, realise how important it is, and don't just dismiss it for being old.